What's up guys, Smiles here with 95Mac, and if you're a fan of good ideas, consider subscribing to the channel for future content like this. We're only a few months away from getting our hands on the next generation of iPhones, and thanks to Sonny Dixon, we've got these mock-ups that give us a pretty good idea of what we should expect later this year. So today we're going to be taking a look at the 13 Pro Max specifically, the flagship, and I'll be doing videos on the other models as well. So like I said, if you're into that, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss those videos. 95Mac on YouTube is sponsored by Beelight. Live Home 3D is a multi-platform home design software available for Mac, iPhone, iPad, and Windows. This app helps anyone create detailed floor plans and 3D renderings of house interiors and exteriors. This app allows you to seamlessly switch between a detailed floor plan view and a 3D model view of your design. And you've got limitless tools and objects you can implement into your design to create the most detailed and accurate representation of your vision. Within the app, you can select countless different objects and materials to play with. Carpets, fabrics, tiling, leathers, metals, and so much more. You can even add in vehicles for those of you who may want to design a garage or a car showroom. Fine-tune the width, depth, and height of your furniture as well as the elevation. You can even toggle shadow casting for objects within a room, which is really useful. As I said earlier, Live Home 3D is available for Mac, iPad, iPhone, and Windows, and you can download the application for free, so if you're interested, be sure to click the first link in the description below. And a big thanks again to Beelight for sponsoring 95Mac on YouTube. This is definitely going to be an S year for the iPhone, so this model will be all about refining what was introduced with the iPhone 12 series of phones. So from a design standpoint, there aren't going to be a crap ton of changes to expect, but there are some important details to take note of. The back of the Pro Max will retain the frosted matte finish with a clear camera bump piece, and you'll have the glossy stainless steel frame wrapping around the device. We're still expecting a lightning port on this phone, no USB-C, and you'll have the triple camera setup on the back as well. So all very familiar stuff here. When taking a look at the front of the 13 Pro Max, something you notice immediately is that the earpiece speaker has been moved up to the very top of the device, and this is because we expect the notch to be slimmed down just a tad. It's definitely not going away completely, but we expect to see this be substantially reduced, and this will apparently be done by Apple changing the position of one of the top receivers to reduce the size of the true depth camera. The size of the 13 Pro Max will remain the same this year as well. It'll be a 6.7-inch phone, but it was rumored earlier this year that the new iPhones will be 0.26 millimeters thicker, which is really negligible and something most people probably won't notice in hand. And I'm all for an increased thickness if this means we'll be getting some added functionality. Overall, the design of the new iPhone is not drastically different at all, but I think the refinements they have made here are all the right ones. The slimmed down notch is going to give the iPhone the 2021 look I think it could very much use, as we've had the same design on the front of the iPhones since 2017, so it'll be nice to finally get something a little different. Now, while the display on these new iPhones won't change in size, there have been countless rumors and leaks surrounding a potential 120Hz display coming to this year's iPhone, and we're not sure whether this will be only on the Pro models or available across the entire lineup. Only time will tell, to be honest. I personally think we should have gotten 120Hz last year, but I've managed to survive without it so far, and I think it'll be great to finally have this on the iPhone. It's just another one of those things that made the iPhone stand out as not being quite as up to date on all fronts compared to other smartphones. And when you think about most Android flagships that have come out in the past 2 years, they've all had high refresh rate displays. Everything from Google, Samsung, OnePlus, they've all had 90Hz and above, so it's time for Apple to step it up. Now, another big back and forth is on Touch ID under the display making it to the iPhone this year. Apple analyst Ming-Chi Kuo reported almost 2 years ago that Apple would be releasing an iPhone with both Face ID and Touch ID in 2021. In October of 2021, our favorite tweeter Love to Dream tweeted out MESA-UTS for iPhone. Mesa is the code name that Apple uses internally for Touch ID, and with that, I think it's a safe assumption that the UTS is an abbreviation for under the screen. And then in January of this year, Bloomberg reported that Apple is indeed testing in-display Touch ID in the iPhone, but also stated that this feature may not make the cut in this year's iPhone. I think it's very much possible that it could make it into the iPhone, but I'd say this is a 50-50, and I wouldn't be entirely shocked if there was no Touch ID in the iPhone this year. The iPhone 13s are expected to feature the A15 Bionic processor, which we have pretty little information on at the moment. But according to TrendForce, we could expect this processor to be built on a 5nm process, just like the A14 Bionic. There's also been some discussion around the M1 chip and whether we could see that processor be put inside of the iPhone, and that's not really how this works. M1 is just their naming scheme for their Mac processors, but it's based off of the same architecture that they're using in the iPhone and the iPad. So the M1 chip inside of the iPad Pro isn't a whole lot different architecturally speaking from the chip that was in the last generation iPad Pro. So the way I see it, the naming isn't really the most important part of the situation. I think in terms of pure power and performance, we could definitely expect to get an M1 level processor inside of the iPhone in the next year or so. It just won't be called M1. Either way though, my expectations are pretty standard as far as what I'm expecting the A15 to be. Perhaps we could get a slight increase in RAM this time around. We've currently got 6 gigs of RAM inside of the 12 Pro Max. Maybe we could get 8 gigs of RAM in the iPhone 13. Probably slim chances on that though. We aren't going to get a whole lot of big changes on the camera side of things for the iPhone this year, but we can expect a few tweaks that refine the experience that we already have on the 12 Pro. The first physical change is the size of the lenses on the iPhone. When comparing the camera piece to the 12 Pro Max, you can clearly see that there's been a slight increase in the physical size of the lenses, but I don't think there's any functional purpose for this, as I don't believe these lenses altogether will be entirely different from what we've got going on in the 12 Pro Max. The only noticeable spec bump to the cameras that we know of so far is a higher aperture on the ultra-wide angle lens. It's now going to be an f1.8 lens as opposed to an f2.4 lens, which is what we've got in the 12 Pro Max. So I think it's safe to say that we can expect improved low light performance for the ultra-wide camera, which is definitely good because we all know that's the weakest performing lens. We can also expect the next iPhones to support portrait mode video, and this is something we've already gotten a taste of with the iOS 15 betas. On iOS 15, you can turn on portrait mode for use within FaceTime, Snapchat, Instagram, and presumably a few other applications that utilize the camera for video. So we've already got a pretty solid look at what this experience should be like within the regular camera app. But outside of that, we shouldn't expect anything crazy with the iPhone's camera this year. Yes, I'm sure there will be more features revealed in the coming months outside of what we've covered thus far, but I think most of that stuff will be pretty minor. Getting HDR video on the iPhone last year was already a huge deal, and Apple is just so ahead of the curve when it comes to certain camera features, so only having minor updates on this year's camera system isn't really something to complain about, if you're asking me. The current iPhones max out at 512 gigabytes of storage, but for those of you horrendously filling up your camera roll with coffee and cat pictures every day, then you'll be glad to hear that we might be getting a 1 terabyte storage option on the iPhone this year. The iPad Pro has 1 terabyte of storage now, so while I don't even want to know how much that's going to cost you, it's cool to know that you'll have that option, and I'm really curious to see how many people are going to feel as though they need that full 1 terabytes of storage on their smartphone. Now, earlier in the video, we talked about how the new iPhone is going to be slightly thicker, and I assume that's partially due to the slightly larger batteries we're expecting to get in the iPhones this year. For the Pro Max specifically, we're expecting an 18% increase in size for the battery, making the total capacity of the 13 Pro Max a 4,352 mAh battery. I think the 12 Pro Max has stellar battery life for the most part, but the smaller 12 Pro and 12 Mini were definitely lacking in that department if you ask me, and I think those models specifically should greatly benefit from having that larger battery. As far as pricing, we expect the 13 Pro Max to come in at the same starting price point of $1099. Outside of the 120Hz refresh rate display, there aren't any super costly components being put into the phone this time around that would suggest a higher price tag. So yes, the Pro Max iPhone is still not a cheap phone at all. Not that any of the iPhones are cheap, but at least they won't charge you more for it. You can look at that as a bright side. This year's Pro Max iPhone isn't going to be an entirely new device compared to the 12 Pro Max, but I think everything being implemented in the device for this year should make for a great phone all around. And a lot of people who held out on the 12 Pro Max for reasons like the lack of 120Hz, this September is going to be your time to shine. There will be plenty more iPhone videos to come this year, so if you're looking forward to that, be sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up for future content like this. And once again, shout out to Sonny Dixon for sending these mock-ups over. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. 9to5Mac on YouTube is sponsored by Beelight. Live Home 3D is a multi-platform home design software available for Mac, iPhone, iPad, and Windows. This app helps anyone create detailed floor plans and 3D renderings of house interiors and exteriors. This app allows you to seamlessly switch between a detailed floor plan view and a 3D model view of your design. And you've got limitless tools and objects you can implement into your design to create the most detailed and accurate representation of your vision. Within the app, you can select countless different objects and materials to play with: carpets, fabrics, tiling, leathers, metals, and so much more. You can even add in vehicles for those of you who may want to design a garage or a car showroom. As I said earlier, Live Home 3D is available for Mac, iPad, iPhone, and Windows, and you can download the application for free, so if you're interested, be sure to click the first link in the description below. And a big thanks again to Beelight for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube.